What's up, everybody? Okay, I gotta get used to the camera being over here. So this is gonna be live stream number 4, numero cuatro over here. So we're gonna have a good time. All right, so I've got a slightly new setup. We're down in the studio, quote unquote. We're gonna continue a discussion on beginner music theory. Okay, and in that doing, I left the stuff that we kind of did up on the board last time. All right, just so everybody can get a recap. If you need to do a screenshot of this, go ahead. Of course, obviously, this will be back up on the YouTube channel later on, so you can still watch this later. But what I did is I just recapped everything we did last week so that we could have a foundation upon which to begin this week, okay? We discussed all the intervals. We discussed everything we had in Western music, okay, and how it works. And it's very important. I want you to get this. And I know I say this maybe ad nauseum, but it really is one of the foundational principles of Western music and something that you really got to get right off the bat for this to work for you. And I want it to work for you. Okay, so always remember that the half step is the smallest interval in Western music theory. It's the smallest thing. We cannot do anything else smaller than a half step. If it's smaller than a half step, in other words, if there's a note or something that's registering on your tuner between B and C, it's simply an out of tune B or an out of tune C. Okay? There's no interval there. That is a half step, all right? Likewise, there is a half step here between C and D. Well, I'm sorry, that's a whole step. What I meant to say is there's a half step here. There's a note in between those two notes. So you're going to go C to C sharp. That's a half step, right? C to C sharp to D. That's a half step, okay? So again, just laying those ground rules, those foundational principles for what we're going to do today, okay? And if anybody has any questions or comments that you'd like me to answer, feel free to put that in the comment section. I can see the computers just a little further away from me, so I'll answer those questions in a little bit if you've got any. All right, so let's come down here. We discussed the half step. We discussed the whole step, okay? Now remember, a whole step is just stacking two half steps on top of each other, okay? So let's imagine that this finger is a half step, right? Half step, you've got a whole step, okay? So that's basically how that works, more or less, for that visual, okay? Hopefully that helps you out. Let me know if it doesn't. I'll try to explain it better. Now, half steps and whole steps are where we get intervals and scales. Now, to get the scales, first I've got to get to intervals, okay? And I want you to think of this kind of like building blocks, okay? So like, let's say we're building a building, right? Anybody who's lived down south or, well, and in the north too, you can think about like bricks, building a building, or like cement blocks, building a building. A lot of homes down south of the United States, which is the area in which I am in, uses cement blocks to build. A lot of places also use brick homes, okay? So brick homes is something that you could associate it with. Now, imagine bricks being stacked on top of each other. Those bricks are half steps, all right? Half step, half step, half step, half step, half step, half step. If I put two bricks on top of each other, that is a whole step, okay? Two bricks on top of each other is a whole step, okay? Very important to get that because we're going to use whole steps to create larger intervals, and we're going to use whole steps to create scales. I'm going to try to walk us through that here today. So again, let me know if you have any questions. I'll slow down a little bit, okay? All right, so we've already discussed this, already discussed that. Before we move on, let's talk about what all the notes are in Western music theory, okay? Starting with a B. B, C, going up to this black key here on the piano. This is essentially the piano. C sharp slash D flat, okay? That's the same note. That is one note, C sharp slash D flat, okay? You have a C sharp or a D flat, okay? Now, anybody remember what it's called when you have a note that has two names like that? What do we call that? We call that an enharmonic pitch, okay? E-N-H-A-R-M-O-N-I-C. I didn't write that because I wanted to have some room. It's called an enharmonic pitch because we got more stuff we want to do. That's what C sharp slash D flat is. Okay, so let's go C sharp slash D flat down to D, okay? Then we've got D up to D sharp slash E flat, okay? This is C sharp slash E flat here, okay? Another, what? Enharmonic pitch, exactly, okay? Now we're going to go D sharp slash E flat down to E, okay? Now we've reached E and F, one of our other two naturally occurring half steps. By naturally occurring, we mean there are no other notes between them, right? So you've got no black keys between E and F. and no black keys between B and C. Okay, moving forward. F to F sharp slash G flat right here. Okay, another inharmonic pitch. F sharp slash G flat down to G. Okay, G to G sharp slash A flat, another inharmonic pitch. Okay, G sharp slash A flat down to A. Okay, A up. Well, down, I'm sorry. I've been saying down. We're not going down at all, okay? We are actually going higher in pitch this way. Let me make that clear, okay? I just realized that in my head. That is technically incorrect terminology. What I want you to understand is when you're going this direction, you're going up in pitch, no matter if it's a half step or a whole step, no matter if it's a black key or a white key, okay? Keep that in mind. I've been going up in pitch this whole time. Imagine that it's vertical, okay? That's why I wrote this vertical. We'll talk about that in a minute, okay? I've been going up in pitch. What I mean was it looks like, we've been going up or down. That's not the case. We've been going up in pitch, okay? All right, resuming. A to A sharp slash B flat, okay? A sharp slash B flat up to B, and then back to C, okay? Now, let's also count. Let's just stick to letter names for a second, and here's the next thing I really want you to get. Letter names are what the numbers will be. Letter names are what these numbers will be. Don't let that confuse you. Just let that marinate in your mind just a little bit. Marinate in the mind, okay? Okay, letters are what the numbers are going to be. We're going to get to that in just a minute, all right? Now, let's count, and I want to reiterate one other thing that we talked about last week, the octave, okay? The octave is counted based off of letters, okay? So let's start at B. B1, C2, D3, E4, F5, G6, A7, B8. 8 is octave. Exactly. 8 is octave. Octopus, octagon, 8. Octo, 8, right? So octave just means 8 pitches. And in this case, I do want you to think of it as 8 letter names, okay? 8 letter names. None of the letters can be the same letter, okay, when you're doing an octave or a scale. Okay, in advanced music theory, there are ways around this. I will say that. Don't worry about that right now. Where we are in our learning is I've got to give you parameters like guide rails, right? Like anybody ever been bowling? You've been bowling? Okay. So when you go bowling the very first time, it's usually not a good idea to just go and bowl straight with the gutters, right? Those gutters, well, you might never make it down the lane and actually hit those pins. Well, so what I'm doing is I'm giving you those bumpers, okay, to make sure that we get straight down the lane and we hit some pins, all right? But I can't let us get too far off the rails. Advanced music theory does some funky things. Don't worry about that right now, okay? Just worry about what I'm telling you here. We'll get to that in good due time, okay? All right, now, moving forward, I also want you to continually remember that there is something called an interval. And we've talked about the half step being the smallest interval, but that's not the only one. Okay, there are seconds, there are thirds, there are fourths, there are fifths, sixths, sevenths, and eighths. Okay, and eighth being the octave, right? Okay, now again, here's the other thing though. Here's what you got to remember. You always have to have a starting pitch. Okay, for an interval to work, you've got to have a starting pitch. Like we talked about last time, if you're on Google Maps and you want to get from, I don't know, South Carolina to Dallas, Texas, right? Let's say you're in, I don't know, let's go North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina. You want to get to Dallas, Texas. You've got to put in there that you're starting at Asheville, North Carolina, or you'll never get to Dallas, Texas, because Google Maps will be like, well, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know the distance. Distance is the word I want you to remember, okay? I don't know the distance. Well, if I've got a starting point, I can tell the distance, all right? Starting point. What letter am I starting on? What letter am I starting on? I can choose any of these letters, any of them, if I want to. But then I'll have a starting point, okay? And that's very important. You got to remember that. Now, let's do that. Let's just take one randomly. Let's take a G, all right? So I'm going to reuse this right here. So I'm going to come here and I'm circle back around. But know that if I were to do it properly, I would go straight here this way. In other words, the pitch would keep going up, okay? So here's G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, okay? And I'm not actually doing that when I play because you've got to completely go up to create an octave or something like that. But that's what essentially I have to do here because I don't have all the space. I need more space over here for things we're going to do in a minute. All right, does that make sense? And that equals 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. G to G always will equal 8 if you're doing it the proper way. All right? Now, that sets the stage for me to introduce you to seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, sevenths, and eighths. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to make it easy on us. Okay? Because it doesn't use sharps or flats, I'm going to use the C major scale. That's something to just log it away in your brain. Just log that away in your brain. That's all you need to know right now. Okay? So I'm going to use a C major scale. Don't worry about anything else other than you need to know it uses no sharps and no flats for the major scale version of this. Okay? So we're going to do C. Okay? All right. Now we're going to do D. Why did I write an A? It's, oh, Lord. Forgive me. Anyway, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay, now let's go through this. What you don't know yet is that there are a specific combination of half steps and whole steps that make a major scale. Some of us have done scales already. Others have not. That's okay. Don't worry. We'll get to those. We'll get to those in good time in our private lessons. Okay. But there are specific combinations of half steps and whole steps that make up a major scale. The reason that this has no sharps and no flats is because the natural half steps of B to C and E to F use the correct combination of half steps and whole steps to make a major scale without needing a sharp or a flat. Remember, a sharp raises a pitch a half step, a flat lowers a pitch a half step, okay? A natural sign cancels out a sharp or flat. That's generally for music theory, like written music theory, but it applies to this too. All right, so let's, for the fun of it, and I say for the fun of it because I'm a major music nerd, let's, for the fun of it, walk up these letters and let's find out where the half steps and the whole steps are based off of this chart right here. Okay, this is where it's going to get fun. All right, I feel like, never mind, I'll leave that alone. Okay, so C to D. What is C to D? C to D is a half step or a whole step. C to D, half step or whole step. What do you think? Whole step. C to D is a whole step. So let's do this right here. Okay, and again, what did I have? I had a starting point C. I had an ending point D. Okay, C to D, whole step. All right, let's go D to E. D to E is a what? D to E is a half step or a whole step. And what you can ask yourself is, does it have a black key between it or does it not? And that'll tell you but if it's a half step or whole step. Now, this is if you're going in alphabetical order. Don't jump from D to G yet because that's a little bit different territory. Stick with alphabetical order, D to E, okay? D to E is a whole step. All right, let's do this right here. Okay, D to E is a whole step. Okay, now let me make that a little bit shorter because I've got to do E to F. All right, now, E to F. What is E to F? Half step or whole step? Half step, right. So we're going to do this right here. And this is one of the naturally occurring half steps. And it's in the perfect spot to make a major scale, okay? Perfect spot to make a major scale, all right? So F to G. What is F to G? Half step or whole step? Whole step, that's right. Okay, so we're going to do a whole step. F to G. Okay, now we've got G to A. Let's look back here. G to A. G to A, a half step or a whole step? Well, it's got a black key between it, which means there's a half step up to the black key, half step down to the A. It's a whole step. Exactly. It means there's a note between it there. Half step plus half step equals whole step. Exactly. Okay. I know I'm acting like you're responding, but it makes it fun. Okay, so hopefully I give you time to answer. You know what I mean? All right, so moving forward. A to B. A to B, half step or whole step. A to B, half step or whole step. A sharp, there's my half step. A sharp to B, whole step. Half step plus half step equals whole step. Maybe we'll make a song about that one day. Maybe that'll be too annoying. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Okay, then finally, B to C. B to C, what is that? Get it, two white keys side by side. Half step, exactly, okay? So half step right there. All right, now, coming over here, I'm going to divulge to you the combination of half steps and whole steps you need to create the major scale right now. Now, this will apply to any major scale: A major, B major, C major, D major, E major, F major, G major, A sharp major, G sharp major, F sharp major. Doesn't matter what it is. Major, 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 major. These are the combinations of half steps and whole steps in succession, alphabetical order, that you need to stack to create a major scale. All right, so it's going to be whole, whole, half. Let's do just a capital H there. And then you've got whole, 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 half. Okay? That is the combination of half steps and whole steps. I know I said a half step first, but major scales start here with a whole step. Okay? So whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now here's the funky part. Follow me. Follow me just a second because I've got to explain this. Let's count the number of intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 intervals here, okay, but 8 notes. 8 letters, I should say. 8 letter names. Why is that? Because like Google Maps, we need what? A starting note. Got to have a starting note. So because you have the starting note kind of counts as that initial one. There's not really an interval to the starting note. It's just the starting note. So you're not really going to have an interval before what? The first 2 letters. So that's why there's 7 intervals and 8 letters. Okay, starting point. Told you it was important. All right, so that's your combination to make a major scale. We'll get more in depth with this in the future. Just kind of stick with this for right now. Let it marinate in the mind. Let it marinate in the mind. Okay, and we'll move forward with that. Now, I want to introduce you to another idea. Okay, the other idea is that you can create intervals larger than just a half step or a whole step. Now, how do we know that? Well, we know that because the whole step is a stacked 2 half steps, right? So we can use that to make larger intervals. Again, though, you have to have a starting point. You can't have an interval without a starting point, okay? Because you're going from point A to point B. Now, we kind of have this built in for an easy understanding process. So let me show you something here, all right? And by the way, does the screen look weird? It looks like I have like a gray line chopping my head off right here. I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't look like that for you guys. Let me know. It looks kind of odd from this perspective. Here's 1. So 1 doesn't have an interval, okay? What does have an interval? 1 to 2. Use that. What you're going to get is second scale degree, okay? An interval of a second, okay? Now, this applies primarily to the application of scales, okay? But what it also means is that I don't have to do a scale to have this interval, the interval of a second. The interval of a second, and when you're talking about scale degrees, is a whole step. Whole step right here, okay? Whole step. Now, what if I want to have the starting point be a C, okay? And I end on the 3rd note, or the 3rd letter, or the 3rd scale degree. Well, then I can have a 1, 2 interval of a 3rd. Okay, let's leave that alone. I'm not going to get into majors or minors right now because that is a major thing. Well, no pun intended. Did not intend that. But that is a real big thing that we have to talk about later. Don't worry about those. Just understand that 1, 2, 3. You can have an interval of a 3rd. Okay, or a 3rd scale degree. Okay, 3rd scale degree. Interval of a 3rd. This is also 1 to 3. This is the 3rd scale degree. Okay, interval of a 3rd. You have to have a starting point. 1 to 3. The difference between scale degrees and intervals, if you're wondering, is that the scale degree, it has a starting point in the sense that you have to have a starting point for the scale, but I can isolate this and just call it the 3rd scale degree. I have to say the 3rd scale degree of what? This is the 3rd scale degree of the C major scale, okay? But I can isolate it. That's kind of what that is. It's the isolation of that note. But for intervals, I have to have a starting point, okay? So this is a 3rd, an interval of a 3rd, okay? Now I'm going to have C to F. That's an interval of a 4th, okay? Now C to G, that's an interval of a 5th, okay? Now C to A, that's an interval of a sixth, okay? C to B, that's an interval of a seventh, okay? C to C, that's an interval of an eighth, okay? Or octave, exactly, okay? Now, I'm also going to say these all as scale degrees, okay? First scale degree. Doesn't require me to have a starting point necessarily, but I absolutely have to decide what scale I'm going to be using. In other words, I have to have a starting point still, but I can isolate it, and I can call it the first scale degree. And there's no interval that's really associated here because it's my starting note, right? My first scale degree, okay? Second scale degree, okay? Third scale degree, fourth scale degree, fifth scale degree, sixth scale degree, seventh scale degree, eighth scale degree. Now, here's the weird part about this. Let's say you've got a song where you actually have a C, and then another C up here, okay? Well, good Lord, what is that? Is that the 16th scale degree? Technically, yes, you can call it that, but we don't. We don't call it that, okay? We really mainly... Yeah, you go up to 13ths and 14ths, stuff like that. But really, most chords and scale degree discussion stops at the 13th. I mean, it's there, obviously, and stuff after that is there. But if you're going to go past 8, a lot of times we just start over again at 1, at 8 or 2. Like, so this would be 1 again, and then this would be 2. Yes, it can be a 9. The next one up can be a 10, which 10 would be 3, 9 would be 2. But I'm not going to get too deep into that today. We can talk about that more later, okay? All right, now, and this is where we get scales, okay? These are where we get scales, right here, all right? From this whole process, this whole discussion of intervals, this whole discussion of notes, this whole discussion of natural half steps, natural whole steps, so on and so forth, this is how you get a scale, okay? And the two main scales, I'll tell you this now, because I don't want to get too long-winded because this is stuff that needs to marinate, are going to be major and minor, okay? Major and minor. All right, we'll discuss more with this later. Probably next week we'll discuss more with this. This is stuff that's a little heavier for the beginner. Okay, this is like eating solid foods, right? When you're young. So it's a little bit heavier. I'm going to let this marinate on you for the week, okay? This is going to be here. We're going to leave this alone. We're going to come back to this for next week, okay? All right, so go ahead. If you need to, write this down, make a screenshot or something like that. Come back to this during the week because this will be here during the week. I'll put this video up right now so you can watch it again later. Hope this helped you out. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have any comments, any questions about how I can improve what we're doing here or what we can do to make this better, okay? Look for some more videos coming up soon. Quick update. I got an awesome new mixer that allows me to both record multi-tracks into my digital audio workstation and record live sound and mix it simultaneously. So what you'll see moving forward on the channel is you'll see a lot more things where I actually have my instruments plugged in and playing, so I can isolate the signal and give you really, really good sound quality. It'll also let me do reviews more efficiently, so you can actually hear the sound of the instrument, and I can isolate my voice with a headset microphone, and that way you don't hear ambient noise and stuff like that. So we're gonna get that moving forward. Just give you an update on that. I hope you enjoy this. Please give it a like. If you're not a subscriber and you enjoy this and found it helpful, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. You'll get notifications whenever we go live here on the YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, also like us on Facebook. I think if you type in just @Musilesson, it will pop up and you'll see us. Like there, because I always post when I'm live streaming there, so that you'll know, like maybe you missed the notification on YouTube. You'll find that on Facebook that I always post there and always give you the time. Okay, so that'll help out as well. Always visit the Musilesson webpage because we've got some guides and stuff like that. I'm doing some spring cleaning on that, some house cleaning, and updating some things and making it look a little bit better. Also organizing the site a little bit better so that it's easier for you to maneuver around it and find what you need as a student or as an individual. Okay, all right, let me know if you got any more questions. Really enjoyed everybody stopping in and checking this out. Thank you for being here. I'll see you at the next one. Remember, music is magic. Have a great day, and let's go practice. See you soon.